Get started?
Yeah, so much. Lots of sessions.
Yes.
Relief.
And so let's do this together. But really, it's been a wonderful workshop. Thank you for staying on till the end. I'm going to talk about generative AI misinformation and focus on a field experiment. This is joint work with Felipe from Johns Hopkins, Ruben at National University Singapore, and Felix, who's at Süddeutsche Zeitung. So just to locate this paper, I had this slide in the previous talk, but again, it's like I thought about rise of online platforms and their interaction with media platforms, democratization of content creation, again in the context of media platforms, and now the focus is quite a bit on the AI in the information ecosystem. We didn't, or as part of my broader research agenda, it's like it's not as if we randomly arrived at these topics. I've looked at the role of algorithms in different media sort of contexts prior, where it was about the placement and distribution of content. Generative AI and misinformation is about the creation of synthetic content. Just to give you some context, if you remember in Homa's presentation, we were talking about what's you have an algorithm, there's personalization, but what's the benchmark? One of a field experiment, actually again with a media outlet in. Yeah, no, not a problem. The green thing is not showing around. So,
but that was because I hit the meeting panel.
Press S because the controls appear.
Press what?
Escape.
I did. Maybe need to end this meeting.
Go to more. You go to more. No, go to more.
There was a share button there, right?
Yeah, there was a share.
Yeah.
It's too far for me to see.
So more and right on top. Right on top.
Okay, there you go.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on.
Thank you. More and hide. Correct? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so, some of my thoughts about, how should we think of the counterfactual, we thought about in this paper where we had a counterfactual of, the human editor at this news outlet, and human editors are also pretty sophisticated. We realize that, they keep changing positions of articles like every 3 or 4 minutes. Over lunch, we were talking about brand safety and advertising next to certain types of content that's related to this paper that I have with a bunch of. So again, I've been working on algorithms and how they automate distribution of content, and which sort of organically leads me to talk about the creation of synthetic content. So what's the big picture? We've had quite a few talks, but I'll remind you that when I was presenting Monday afternoon, I had one slide related to just general misinformation thoughts, and I'm going to talk about online misinformation for a couple of slides right now. In general, I think even though there's a debate about the extent of the problem that misinformation might create, there is enough evidence that it is a problem. It could potentially reduce trust in news content, institutions, and could increase polarization. There are different types of evidence. Some is more robust, some is more descriptive, some is more conceptual. It can have potential negative effects on players in the platform ecosystem. But I point you to this picture here, where this is from the Reuters Institute, which is right here in Oxford, and they carry out these surveys, large-scale surveys, cross-country surveys every year, where they have many different types of media-related questions. But one of them was the proportion of people who are concerned about what is real versus what is fake online. And these numbers are pretty high, but also if you look at the changes, it's been increasing at least between 2024 and 2025. So in general, online misinformation is considered a problem. And when AI enters the picture, the idea is that there might be benefits to generative AI, but it also reduces the cost of creating synthetic visual and audio content, right, at scale. And moreover, in the past couple of years, with ChatGPT, with other versions of DALL-E and other LLMs, the quality has been becoming significantly better. And so there are some sort of thought pieces, conceptual pieces that, in fact, with this sort of synthetic content available online, this can further increase misinformation, and this might actually reduce trust in mainstream media or content in general online. That is, it might actually reduce trust and demand for even credible content. That's been a dominant sort of conceptual.
Which might be part of the objective, as discussed.
Potentially, yes. If you're a strategic, player, that could be possible. This paper will focus on, visual misinformation. Max, you had some questions, like it was related to the strategic players in the previous talk. Archie, you might not remember, but you had questions about text versus images. We're going to focus on images here. We're actually not going to focus on both. So last time I was talking about text only, and in some sense here I'm going to talk about images only, though they work in conjunction in reality, of course. We focus on images because there was a study which showed that there are 34 million AI generated images daily. They reach 80% of users, and 76% of US news users fail to spot AI generated images. And the studies show that 76% is like a lower bound, like 90% of the time people can't tell.
So they get to these numbers.
Sorry. Good question. I don't remember, and I would take these as motivating numbers rather than anything super concrete, because that's it. Just like in general, conversation has been that, or whatever initial exercises have been carried out, they suggest that it might be a problem.
So then, like, so you were saying images. So should we think of these as like the image illustrations with news articles, or do the images have some information encoded in them?
So the images do have some information that you might be able to infer. And in some sense, I'll walk you through the images that we have. We'll do part of the image quiz. We have an image quiz in there, so we'll do that together and see how good everyone is. But yes, and then we can talk about, like, how much information is there, how would it be complemented by text, or how do we generalize maybe outside of these sets of images. In the sort of broader realm of things, we've spoken about AI slop. AI slop is the sort of pop culture term. This is under the umbrella of AI slop, and the AI Act, the European AI Act, is trying to think about how to tackle this potential problem. The sort of point that we bring forward in this paper is the following: that if the concern is that generative AI makes things cheaper to produce, makes things indistinguishable, then what becomes scarce is sort of trustworthiness, right? So it might not necessarily be the case that as um, as the information ecosystem gets more and more synthetic content, problematic content, that might necessarily reduce the demand for mainstream news. In particular, it could be that you try and go to your trusted sources to seek out sort of veracity between what is true versus what is not, which might actually even become a potential economic or business opportunity for mainstream news outlets. Just as one example, the New York Times has a visual investigations team. It's had it for a number of years, but their main sort of goal is to ensure that they use whatever tools and expertise that they have, and they tell potential readers, what is a real image versus what is not. This is just one example of what they've been doing with the war in Iran. But of course, at the end of it, they want more people to read, to actually subscribe, right? So that's why they're potentially building, investing resources in this. So given this sort of big picture and this potential counterpoint that we have, this paper tries to understand following questions. How does highlighting the potential of AI to create misinformation impact preferences and choices of users for trusted news outlets? We'll have stated preferences as well as revealed preferences in terms of actual browsing behavior and subscription choices that they make. How do we go about this? I'll have a very simple theoretical framework. In fact, it's one slide with minimal. It's like the anti of Ben's that I'll be like Ben will be disappointed. But
You have like data.
right, so that's why we complement each other. Yes, we complement each other. Again, the idea of the model most of it is, a simple toy model in the paper. Is just it was helpful for us to think through the results of the experiment. But the core of the paper is a field experiment with Süddeutsche Zeitung, which is a major German newspaper. I'll tell you more about it. Within this, the field experiment is such that we randomly get people to take the treatment quiz versus a control quiz, where the treatment quiz asks people to tell apart AI generated or heavily AI modified pictures from real ones. We have a control quiz, and I'll tell you more about it. And right after the intervention, we elicit some survey responses, and then we're also able to track their actual behavior on the platform. Just to give you a sense of where we're headed, what we find is that our treatment increased the concern for misinformation. So in the treated group, when people were exposed to these sets of images, and in particular they found it hard, we find that the treatment increased the concern for misinformation, but it reduced the overall trust in the news, including SZ. But we find that people in the treatment group actually increase the intensity with which they browse SZ after the intervention. Moreover, there was improved subscriber retention post-experiment over several months. And in some sense, we have a model to try and tie some of these things together. I think what lends credibility to some of these results is that we find that the effects are stronger for individuals who had limited prior political interest, and for individuals who found the quiz hard or didn't perform well. Yeah.
Feel free to pump the question, but I guess one slight's description I've mind of media is that it's kind of bifurcated more, where you have like subscribed media, like whatever the New York Times, Financial Times, or stuff like New Yorker or whatever. And then kind of the more whatever clickbaity mass media that bifurcated more in the era of social media now, GenAI.
Right.
How does I guess can you speak to that in some ways?
Yeah, so I think that's a fair question. I think Süddeutsche Zeitung is it's a pretty major player. It's akin to the New York Times in terms of how much people might trust it, in terms of their subscription model. I think what we need for these results to sort of generalize is that they work for individuals who might trust a media outlet, right? So what you need is that you're sort of, with this intervention, you're shocked. You're shocked in a way that your concern for misinformation goes up, and then you latch on to your most trusted source as the expert.
Because where I was going was for the heterogeneity, right? Like, does it somehow split people into those who get like the vetted information for money, versus everybody else who gets ad financed or social media information?
Right. Most of our people in the sample are subscribers. So, and this is like heterogeneity within subscribers. So that's the first part. The second is, and the upside of this setting is that we can observe a lot on the platform. The downside is that we don't observe too much off platform. So I don't know what these people are doing off platform. So that's definitely fair question, and definitely future sort of follow up. Okay. This is not the okay. So I have two slides on the theoretical framework. One is this. The second is this. Again, it's like with the conversations around theoretical models that we've had, this is a very simple signal extraction model that we have. Consumers seek accurate signals, and demand is increasing in precision over the outside option. The way we model generative AI is that it adds noise to the signal variance. At baseline, if it just, if you think of the technology as adding, variance to, noise to the signal variance, then it will just symmetrically lower perceived quality. The way we bring in, trust versus or trustworthiness versus not is that I believe, as a consumer, that trusted outlets might better filter misinformation with some factor alpha. And so then with this sort of simple setup, we show that as misinformation rises, the demand for relatively trustworthy sources might increase. Yeah.
Is there a way to generalize this and think about consumers who actually don't want accurate signals? Like maybe I just don't want good news. I just want good celebrity gossip. And I want something that isn't necessarily accurate. It just sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be something that sort of the yellow press with GenAI that gets much better at.
Yeah, good question. I guess, sorry?
A version of that would be like confirmation bias type things, right?
Right.
From my beliefs.
Right. So to be honest, that's where I was headed to. In some sense, this is based on your subjective sort of perception of trust, right? So I'll show you. I think there's a slide at the end where, again, from the Reuters survey, where you see that if you ask people where would they go if they wanted to verify whether something was online, something was fake versus not, across the political spectrum, people say that a news source that they trust, right? Now, but all of this is sort of based on your own perception of trust. In the same way, in the experiment, we don't really define misinformation either. We just make people take a quiz and we just ask them how concerned they are about misinformation. So in some, that's good in a sense that we let people define these things for themselves. To the larger, issue of, what is misinformation, we can't speak to that. So I'm trying to, I hope that makes sense. Yeah, I'm trying to give you a response through this lens. And then there are, of course, other factors about entertainment and stuff like that, that are in some sense multidimensional, right? They're multidimensional things.
But I'm thinking like there is a useful parallel in the misinformation literature in the sense that if you were to, like, there's all these experiments that are either priming people or prompting them about misinformation. It seems that what it does is that just makes people, instead of making them more discerning, just makes them more suspicious overall.
Right.
And this seems to be very consistent.
Yeah. I think, yeah, we do link to that literature. That's a fair point. Yeah, because do they become suspicious of everything or like suspicious of unlabeled content?
No, it seems that like even for news that is true, they're more likely to that is actually not true, but because they just think everything is not true,
right?
They
right.
also get better at like finding or calling misinformation, but that's not because they're better at like discerning misinformation as misinformation.
Oh, okay.
They're just increasing the level of things that they're thinking of as misinformation.
Okay.
And so that seems to be.
Yeah, maybe we should lean into that. We should lean into that a bit more. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. I think we have those citations, but that's not how we were thinking about it.
That's kind of what a simple patient model would tell you, right? Like
Yeah.
you have like a base probability, and the base probability that it's fake is shifting.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Then
Right.
Shift your posterior belief everything in
Yes. Yes. I guess that's, a version of what we are not micro-founding this at all, but I guess one way to micro-found it would be that, I guess.
And I'm thinking just like every image you see can be either GenAI or not, right? And have a prior probability that it is.
Right.
Then you try
Yeah.
to give it that prior probability with the quiz or whatever,
Right. Yeah.
and it get kind of that pattern, right?
Yep. Oh, so I often when we present the paper, when I presented Felipe or even Ruben, it's like it took us a while to sort of make sense of our results. Maybe, like everyone else seems to catch on to why this makes sense much quicker. But, yeah, I end up apologizing quite a bit that maybe it's obvious to you, but for some reason it took us a while.
Bias.
Sorry?
They have greater hindsight bias.
Right. Yeah, so again, it's like it's I'm happy that like you're sort of in general get on board with the intuition, but as I go through the results, maybe if there are questions, I'll try to lean on this very simple framework to try and think through different things. Okay, so now let me for the next good chunk, let me talk about the empirical setting. So Süddeutsche Zeitung, as I mentioned before, is a news outlet of high repute. It's the largest non-tabloid German newspaper. It's based in Munich. It broke the Panama Papers story a couple of years ago. It was it took the lead there, and one of its taglines is that the truth cannot be generated, only researched. So it's when it comes to this topic, it's Süddeutsche Zeitung is a good partner. So we collaborate with them, and we set up an experiment. I'll tell you about the experiment first. What the quiz was. We do the quiz, and then I'll talk about how we get people to actually engage with the quiz in the first place. So, in terms of the experimental design, we have the treatment, which is an AI quiz. We call it an AI awareness quiz, or AI salience quiz. We're not necessarily wedded to the exact terminology. The idea is to show 3 pairs of pictures. So, first pair, second pair, third pair, and ask individuals to tell us which one might be AI generated versus not. After each pair, when they respond, we tell them the right answer. And then the next pair comes. We try to mimic, what other quizzes by SZ look like. So so that it's as real as possible. They don't know that we are behind this quiz, so they're just doing this off their own initiative. I'm going to go into exactly what pairs of pictures we had. In the control group, we had a current affairs knowledge quiz. We had similar pictures as in the AI quiz, but not exactly. And I'll tell you why. The idea was that we sort of mimic their sort of daily information sort of consumption journey. We wanted them to have a quiz just so that maybe it accounts for some level of entertainment value, and it's sort of akin to an active control design. What did we do exactly? We took the 3 pairs of pictures like in the treatment group for the control group. In each of the pairs, one of the pictures was real. So that goes into the control group quiz as well. For the second picture in the control group, we use the base or the real picture that was modified. and put into the AI quiz. And that becomes the second picture in the control group. Does that make sense? So let's use an example, okay? And maybe that will clarify things. Before the example, let's do a quick quiz. Yes. These are two pictures. I think the resolution in the online was better. Two pictures here, clearly related to some sort of climate events. Which image was generated using AI? Either the left one, right one, both, or none. So who thinks that the left one was generated using AI? Two. Who thinks that the right one was generated using AI? Okay. What is,
Do I need to say both?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So next is both.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. And neither? Okay. So as it turns out, this is a real picture and this is not. Again, we had a reasonable number of researchers degrees of freedom to sort of, choose pictures, right? And when we came across this, we were like, surely this is fake, but it's not. And this is a fake, this is heavily AI modified or generated. And so if you're in the treatment group, you see this. If you're in the control group, you see the same real picture, okay? But you see the base picture that we started out with and, fed into the LLM and asked it to sort of, mimic the general light, mimic whatever, and make it, more AI, right? Now, another point of difference was that, this was like a current affairs sort of quiz. So in which countries were these images taken in 2020? We did this for a couple of reasons. And we also didn't have, the same sort of pictures in both for a couple of reasons. One is that if we had anything AI generated in the control quiz, we would have to disclose it to Google, because Google is, scraping these pages, and as part of their sort of disclosure policy, we would have to disclose it, and we didn't want to sort of, prompt them to think about AI necessarily, just general information consumption. Here, we eventually, right before individuals started taking the quiz, we did tell them now, now you're going to distinguish between AI and non-AI images. So then Google knows that, and there are the correct answers, so they will know that these images are AI generated. So again, when you're doing this, when we were doing this in the field, it, apart from the collaboration with SC, there's other sort of constraints that we have to think about. So this was the first set of pictures. Then this is the second set of pictures. Again, we actually started out with this picture, which is real, and we thought that this is obviously fake, but this is a real picture where they're, I think, at Jimmy Carter's funeral in like early 2025. And then, prominent German politicians here. And the final one was related to protests. This one is real. This one is not. So again, it's like, you should think of the treatment as this whole bundle, right? The three pairs and each and each user getting feedback on their response after every quiz question. So, going back to your question about, do these images provide information? They do in different ways. It's, related to different topics, and we have some empirical analysis that, tries to rule out some mechanical effects and stuff like that. So but to interpret the intervention, you should just think of it as a bundle. So how did we get people to engage with this? We had a pop-up on their website, which was shown to 1% of the users, as is normally the case. We got very few people through this pop-up. A large majority of our users came from the mailing list. So most of our respondents are subscribers, which, as a starting point for us, is perfectly fine. It's a feature, not a bug, in that we want to understand the behavior of people who trust Süddeutsche Zeitung, right? So you would think, and we verify that these individuals do trust Süddeutsche Zeitung the most. Now, when we send out an email, of course, people can choose to ignore it. People can choose to click on it or whatever, right? So there's selection into the experiment, but the randomization only happens after they click on the link, right? So there is selection into the experiment. That's fine. Randomization happens after they click. So they are, there is internal validity there. We have survey measures. Our sort of first stage will be, concerned with misinformation. As I mentioned before, we don't, in this quiz, at no point do we talk about misinformation, right? We just only ask them about their concerns with how concerned they are about misinformation. Then we have, trust in the media. We have various media outlets, and we have a willingness to pay measure, which we've sort of downplayed, and I'm happy to talk about it if someone has thoughts. Now, we also have engagement measures. The privacy restrictions in Germany are significant in that if we wanted to link survey responses with actual behavior, we needed to take explicit consent. We got consent from about 6,000 people. Importantly, this consent was taken before they started anything. And we have nice balance on observables, which was a big relief because
randomization.
Sorry?
It was taken before randomization.
Before I think it was right after they were randomized, but before they started anything. So they just knew that they would take an image quiz or an image survey.
Okay. But at that point, no treatment had been. Yeah. And otherwise it would be a problem, right? Because I'm
thinking of a question development economists get in reverse, I guess, in this case, which is, why did you do this in Germany? I mean,
Good.
you won't have this. Nobody cares about privacy in India or whatever, you do it in a developing country and link whatever to whatever, as we were talking about.
Yeah. If there is an opportunity, I would love to. It's just, with these sort of things, you're just looking for opportunities, and we were just overjoyed that, an outlet like SC was like even willing to do this.
But you need like a data partner in that sense. Like you could, I imagine, what is the case against just recruiting people on the field and making them answer these quiz questions?
I think It's a fair question. We have at least thought about, okay, how about, if you use a browser extension? I think that, we could potentially, it's just that here we are pretty sure about individuals trusting SZ. There, here the assumption is more likely to hold, which we also verify. Potentially, we can also elicit that and verify on a browser extension. We could do that. Yeah.
You also care about the behavioral outcome of subscription.
Yeah, behavioral. Yeah, and I was coming to that. It's like, but with a browser extension, maybe you could at least get browsing behavior. Subscription, it might not be quite clear. And we actually get a nice result on subscription, which is important.
For WTP also, you need like these people to understand what subscription is.
Right. So
for that WTP to make any sense.
To be honest, it's like it's only ex post that we realized, and through the review process now that we've sort of started downplaying the willingness to pay measure. Not only do you need them to understand, but if they do understand, then there might be like major strategic incentives to, because it's like SZ is asking you how much are you willing to pay, and then they have the data to set, they have your data and they are setting the prices.
It's also like I'm assuming the WTP module in the survey was also incentive compatible, so people.
No, so it's like we want. So this is where one of the constraints come in, which is that we wanted to mimic how their surveys and quizzes look like. So, for example, the survey measures are not incentivized, just because it wasn't clear what it meant to, how do you do it when they don't know that we are behind it. So I guess, maybe tying it back to your bigger point is that there are these differences between, individuals just browsing in their sort of normal environment, and even relative to, let's say, a browser extension setting. Yeah. And I mean, apart from the fact that, you get, let's say you get people from Prolific and stuff like that, it's, it can be a weird sample. This is, you might think of this as a weird sample in that these are people who are subscribers, and how many people subscribe anyway, and these are people who subscribe and also engage in these surveys and quizzes. But that for us is good because it shows a level of trust or yeah.
So do you need to share the result of this quiz as is the case with Wordle in the New York Times?
Yeah, so I don't think so. Like, directly, there's no based on the mock-up quiz that I did, there's no share button that comes on. That said, they could. So to sort of address that, the only sort of off-platform sort of variable that we have is like traffic coming from social media websites, pre versus post, treatment versus control, and we don't find any change there. But yeah, we were concerned. So there's fair point. Okay, so in terms of performance, we find that in the treatment group, people do slightly better than random, and this is actually much better than similar quizzes or AI versus no AI quizzes in the literature. While in the control group, people do pretty well. But this is also similar to just general awareness quiz results in this nice paper by Charles Angelucci and Andrea Craig. Now, we've talked about what is the right counterfactual in a variety of contexts. This is, you can think of constructing a control group in a variety of ways, right? This is one way. Then, We thought of many other ways, which either we were constrained by SD to not do it. But what we also have is an alternative control where we have non-quiz takers. So as as a matched control, non-quiz takers as an alternative benchmark. For these people, we don't have survey related outcomes, but we have actual behavioral outcomes on the
That
platform.
part's not randomized.
No, it's not. Yeah. Yes. So that there is, so that's why it's not a pure control. Again, through the review process, it's like we've sort of made the language more precise. Huh?
Your results.
Yeah, we've been asked to downplay this. I really like the alternative control because we were thinking about the control group in a variety of ways. But yeah, we sort of downplayed it, made sure that the terminology is more precise. Okay, so these are the balance tests. These are people. This is the overall sample, and more importantly, the tracked sample, the people who gave consent, right, to link their survey outcomes to actual browsing outcomes and subscription outcomes. We have stuff related to gender, age. So this is elicited through the survey, but prior activity, location, subscription type, across topics, and I was very relieved that things have turned out well. So we have reasonable confidence that it's been implemented correctly. Okay, so now let me go through survey-based outcomes. The first one is the following. If you're in the treated group, so you're exposed to the AI, you take the AI quiz, on average, you have a large increase in concern with misinformation relative to the control group. And how did we elicit this? It was a simple question, which is that nowadays it's easy and deceptively realistic to create and spread misinformation. This is the English translation. Felix, our partner, helped us, with the exact language in German, and we find that there was a significant effect. So this is, in some sense, our first stage. This is what we wanted to move by not explicitly stating anything related to misinformation, but just making people realize that it's a hard exercise to tell apart AI-generated content from not. So that's a key first stage result. And then we have treatment effects related to trust numbers. What we find here is the following. We find that trust across outlets, including SC itself, goes down. It's the magnitudes are between 0.05 to 0.1 standard deviation units. So it's not super large, but it's modest, but still I think meaningful, given that trust. We honestly didn't think that trust would really move that much. And it moves, it's negative across the board. One thing to note here is the following, that we measured trust levels across treatment and control. But if you look at the treatment group, SC had the highest level of trust. Then ARD, ZDF, which is the public sort of the BBC equivalent, and then Build is a more right wing sort of outlet, and so all these trust numbers are much lower than SC. So again, we went in with the assumption that the people that we'll get in this would be people who trust SC, and we were able to verify at least through just simple stated preferences. Yeah.
How soon after the intervention do you measure this?
This is right after. This is right after. And we actually, I have results for a follow-up that we did about 1 year after, and then all these basically shift back to zero. So there's no difference between treatment and control. That's a convenience sample, but we get like reasonable balance again across treatment and control. But I think that's an important point about when we elicit it, right? It's like right after. We were still surprised that it was like it just moved negatively for everyone. One final thing I'll say here is that when we look at percentage changes in trust numbers, given that the base for SZ is much higher, percentage changes for percentage decline for SZ is much lower relative to, let's say Instagram or TikTok or X or whatever, which technically would be in line with our model. Yes.
I mean, just thinking about what more broadly is going on here, do you think it's when there's some sort of epistemic challenge or collapse, people revert to priors, their sort of gut instincts in the first place, the cultural affiliations they have? And so this is an example, this group are the sort of people who like this newspaper, and that's their comfort zone, right? And you're telling me something worrying about the world, and it does affect everything. But as you say, it actually affects their trust in the newspaper itself less, relatively. And so, equally, if you were a different group who were very skeptical, would that also cause a reversion to their comfort zone, which is maybe a particularly different set of groups?
Yes.
I'm just trying to think if you extrapolate from just this as to what more generally might be going on. It is a bit of a kind of, you go back to your tribe rather than you necessarily, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we don't have evidence for this, but if you take this seriously and take it to its logical sort of general equilibrium conclusion, maybe you would say that what's the right wing in Germany?
AfD.
But
AfD.
yeah, but that's sorry?
Party, you mean, right?
No, the news outlet.
Bild.
Huh?
Bild.
Yeah, but they say that Bild is a bit more of a tabloid, right? It's like we have some other the Frankfurter Allgemeine. That's slightly right. Yes.
You go to the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, and if that's not right wing for you enough, you go to the Neue Züricher Zeitung.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the reasons why we don't have those options here is that they might think of them as competitors, but now sorry, I was just trying to place your question in the German context. I can give you I know the US landscape more maybe, but it's like it could be that if someone who is slightly more right wing comes processes this sort of the impact of this technology as a whole in the same way, they might go to their more trusted safe haven. That said, so it is possible. That said, we have a couple of extensions of our toy model where we show that they will only go to their trusted outlet if they think that the trusted outlet is mitigating the the concern related to misinformation sufficiently. So so over the medium term, it becomes slightly more complicated. Yeah. But that's a fair question. That's a fair question. And let's see how this paper goes, and then we're hoping to do more stuff related to the broader epistemic sort of thought process. Yeah. Fair. what else? Okay. So now let me move on to reveal preference outcomes and look at daily visits to SC online. And here we're talking about the tracked sample. So for whom we can track their survey outcomes and their browsing outcomes. And so we have information on behavior prior to the intervention and post intervention. So we use a simple sort of diff and diff here. And what we find is the following, that after the intervention, 3 to 5 days after the intervention, people engage with SC much more. And then it sort of dies off bit by bit. These are cumulative effects. Okay. About a 2.5% increase in engagement in the first few days after the treatment. 2.5% is it's a reasonable number. Just to make sure that it's robust. It's like this is the event study equivalent. This is week 1, and we see the jump where we would expect it to be. So people are engaging with SZ more right after. What we do, I have a lot of robustness checks which are in the appendix, but to some of the questions earlier, we wanted to rule out entertainment effects. So if you drop visits from individuals or individuals completely who actually engage with more surveys after the treatment, it doesn't change anything. We have no change in visits from social media. So, ruling out sort of buzz effects that we were talking about. And we have, alternative control group where we get similar results. So yeah.
Sorry, I might have missed this, but in the treatment, like the examples you showed us, they were very serious. But do you have stories about the Kardashians that are AI generated and versus just like entertaining stories also that could be AI generated?
Yes, but not in the quiz.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking about, like maybe a more direct way to get at heterogeneities would be to show them different types of AI generated.
Yeah, for sure. So two thoughts. One, just directly related to our results, I have a result towards the end where we show that to the extent that we can sort of split the sample a little bit, it's people with low prior political interest who end up engaging with hard news more as a result of our intervention, right? So that's like maybe the most direct check. But to your broader point, what we do, I think your broader point holds that this, it was focused on, politics, current affairs, and stuff like that. This could actually hold for, sports news, though, like rumors in sports news, right? Because, for example, it's like, I don't want to digress too much, but there's a reason why this might not hold for sports news, and there's a reason why it might hold for sports news. Why it might not hold for sports news, and why you might not see that much misinformation in sports news is just that, the state of the world is verifiable at the end of the day, right? Much easily. So that's like Jetsko Shapiro 2006, their media bias and reputation sort of paper. And we actually, we contrast hard news versus sports. That said, more generally, like you could think that, you go to your more trusted news outlet, or you go to your trusted outlet to verify whatever you might be, concerned about. For example, I am now, I see fan clubs of like different cricket players, and I'm just like, I just don't know what is true. So I go to ESPN the ESPN website just to make sure whether is this rumor true? Is this person not going to make it to the squad or something like that, right? So it could hold more broadly.
So that also raises the question about the broader ecosystem again, right? Very when you have here that the concern about GenAI pushes people into one particular quality outlet, but in a way that goes across the spectrum of outlets, politicians, and so on. But I mean, Donald Trump's constantly talking about fake news being everything that disagrees with him, right? It's in a way like there's a lot of players that have an interest in amplifying concern over these things, kind of adding to the epistemic collapse, right? It's tribalism.
Yeah, I think
so your version of the story is one that makes us less concerned because maybe that's gonna save traditional media.
right. To the extent that in general, if we think on average the older media ecosystem is better, it might not spell doomsday. That said, even within the older media ecosystem or with newer sources, there is this sort of everyone throwing their hat into the ring with a voice, and you might latch on to.
And everyone trying to disparage anything else as fake news, right?
Yes.
Like in India, the Sudarshan TV, which is like a right-wing news channel, has its own fact checker.
Right. So I think there are two things. One, it does go back to who you end up trusting, but it's also how your beliefs evolve about their ability to mitigate misinformation. Yeah, but I think these are fair questions, and again, how it plays out either over time or through the entire ecosystem is not something that we can speak to as well. Yeah. This is in some sense our point is the following, that there is this talk about how synthetic content, generative AI is just going to destroy trust and demand for media across the board. We're saying that actually for a good chunk of people, it might be the case that they go back to their old trusted experts. So I think that's the limited point that we're bringing to the conversation. Okay, so just to sort of recap where we are, we had the quiz where we had the AI quiz in the treatment and the control quiz with similar images. We found that people who took the AI quiz had a higher concern for misinformation relative to control, and this potentially made them engage with SZ more in terms of their browsing behavior in the initial week or so. Now, what happens to their subscription behavior? And this is, in some sense, what we found over time. In the red line is the treatment group. In the blue line is the control group. And these are cumulative numbers. What we find is the following. If you were in the treatment group, the number of subscriptions or the number of people who dropped their subscription or did not renew was always lower than the control group. So again, which means that our intervention potentially had a bit of a persistent effect. You should not think of deciding to subscribe or not as a super heavy decision, because often it can be auto renewal or so on and so forth. You're not doing this every second day on a monthly basis or so on and so forth. And even within the co-author team, we had different priors about whether we'll see anything here or not. But even in the first few
So it's
days,
pretty massive for a single quiz. You get 30 days extra by half a year.
right. So let me talk about the magnitudes a little bit. So this is just the general thing, but let's put some structure on this. And what we find is that after 5 months, about a subscriber retention rate is about 1.1% higher. We think that this is not a massive effect. It's plausible. And again, these are sort of cumulative numbers, okay? Because it's on a month-on-month basis or a day-on-day basis. The decision to renew is, it's like there's sparsity. What made us also comfortable with this sort of number was that actually we're recording, so it's I'll tell you off. But we based on different types of conversations and benchmarking it against other experiments, it seemed reasonable. Now we also had the alternative control, for which we had a similar result, to the extent that you think that the control quiz is doing something weird to the control group. We found similar results, and we sort of oversampled on highly engaged subscribers who didn't take the quiz. So it wasn't, not a random group, not a pure control, but just like these people were not exposed to our control quiz. These are highly engaged people, and the results sort of go through. Okay, so now I'll have a bunch of results about heterogeneity, which will go to some other questions or points. But okay, till now we've seen that the treatment intervention leads to an increase in concern for misinformation, which leads to an increase in visits and reduced attrition or increased retention. Yeah. Right.
So the quiz thing, I was trying to think through like whether it was NPV positive for them to do more quizzes. But your first comparison can't really answer that. It just says that if they do a quiz, the AI quiz is a better quiz than the news quiz.
Right.
And then your second comparison is subject to the selection thing, that the people who are responding are potentially different than the water control, right? Or am I?
No. So
Like, what was wrong with the alternative control group?
the alternative, the reason we have the alternative control is simply that all of you folks seem fine with the control group or the control quiz, but you can think of various different types of control quizzes, right?
That's the alternative was people who didn't take quiz.
Yes, the alternative control is people who were highly engaged subscribers, but who didn't take the quiz or who didn't even click on the link.
Right, and so the question is whether this is driven by the selection of the link or whether providing the quiz had a causal effect on retention, right? Because I'm trying to sort of do the calculation.
Right.
I don't know how much it costs to run one of these quizzes, but like say it's less than $400,000.
Right.
Or euros. Is it a good investment to run these quizzes?
Right. So I think there are like sort of two sort of related points in there. In some sense, if I take your argument to the extreme, is it in the interest of mainstream news outlets like Süddeutsche Zeitung to basically scare
Well, I think this is sort of the logical corollary of what you're saying, right? Which is that if they are the ones who are going to benefit from
Right.
increased awareness about misinformation, But it also means they have a financial incentive to increase awareness of this information.
That's what I was saying, right? Everybody has to.
Right, right. I think that's a fair point. I think there are two distinctions. One, again, like the model that I skipped, is that the user has to be, has to believe that this outlet will be able to combat misinformation. That's the first one. The second thing is that in this case, users are, or readers are, sort of coming to their own conclusions, right? There is no sort of, there's no thumb on the scale by SZ itself, right? This is not like, an educational sort of article, of which there are many.
I find your quiz somewhat educational.
Right, but educational with SC putting their thumb on the scale. I don't think, because you can Google right now and you will find so many at the NewYorkTimes.com about how to spot, so I don't know if these results would necessarily carry over to that context.
Oh, I would sell it as these results are why that exists,
Okay.
right? The positive number is
Right.
saying the New York Times has an incentive to run those articles.
Right. Actually, something that we're talking to SC about is running that sort of an experiment, whether that leads to increased sort of reduction. I'll get you. Don't worry. No, I apologize. I think what was I going to say? I forget. But yeah, please, question.
So what you're measuring here is I've already got people who are subscribed and who are highly engaged with my content, and then they stay on longer if they're scared of AI. In a way, like the natural alternative experiment to run is the ad that you showed at the beginning, right? Where you scare people of AI who aren't yet subscribers. And then you see if they become subscribers. Do you have any numbers on the success of that ad campaign that they ran? Because it's just two very different groups of users, right? But they're both very interesting and they would give you a broader sense of the full picture.
Yeah, fair point. I don't know if that was an ad campaign. I think that's just their slogan. You were talking about like the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that's just their slogan, but relatedly, again, conversation that we're having with SE right now is, but that's also related to subscribers, is that what if you highlight that you're using AI tools to debunk misinformation, right? That's, a different type of question. That's something, but they've only just started using AI tools based, and that's true for many news outlets. To the broader point, for sure, it's, if there are non-subscribers, does this generalize to them? What we know based on this data is that trust numbers for non-subscribers who took the quiz relative to subscribers who took the quiz, their trust numbers were similar. But we don't have a large enough sample size on the non-subscribers themselves to actually just look at the treatment effect. It's just too noisy.
But I thought Jana's question was more about when people seeing the recruitment ad into the experiment or the survey.
Oh,
Because there also you had some information about, like, if for the consent form, I imagine you'd have to say, we are researchers interested in studying misinformation and AI.
no. So to be clear, and again, that's where the collaboration also helps, is that the email that we sent out for recruitment was very generic. Take an image quiz. And they do that all the time. And so they didn't know whether it was that, help us improve our operations, take an image quiz. And so it was completely neutral, which was also important because we needed to elicit consent to be able to sort of link them together. But more again, if I get your point correctly, more generally, you can think of different types of ad campaigns where you use, where you have different types of readers, as well as different types of, AI related information, whether it's, an educational article by the SC, whether it's just, their logo, or like their tagline, like subscribers, non-subscribers, or people in the wild, right? So I think this was a starting point. I see, those are maybe more expensive sort of campaigns to run. So, we start contributing to the conversation where we can, in some sense. More questions? Then I forget the follow-up point that I had. That's right. Yeah. Okay, heterogeneity in treatment effects. I think hopefully what this will do is try and link the survey results to the browsing behavior, such when we split up that sample. And I'll be cautious in attributing too much causality to everything. So, but let's go through it. Remember that I was talking about the misinformation concern as the first stage, right? This is what we wanted to move. People who found the quiz hard had a higher concern for misinformation reporting. Caveat is that we did not randomize the difficulty of the quiz, right? So people found the AI quiz pretty hard. The control quiz was relatively easier. That's not randomly assigned, and
That's kind of more a mediation analysis than heterogeneity.
yes, mediation rather than moderation. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So it's so we want to caveat that. There is an informational mechanism, and this this is better in that we can measure how much they had engaged with political news prior to the intervention. And if you had politics affinity, or if you were interested in politics prior, then you had a lower movement in concern for misinformation. Right? So if you are not so well, if you're not plugged into politics as much, we find that there was a higher concern for misinformation as a result of the intervention.
Can you help with the scale of the politics affinity variable? Like, I'm just trying to compare it to the treatment size. Like,
Yeah, I think it's just a 0-1.
so like, isn't that mostly like the treatment was based on the same? Like it was 0.238 or something instead of.
No, it'll be it'll be like 0.15. No, it's like 0.24, maybe 0.10. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
So,
off by 0.
yeah. So, it's to the extent that you want to sort of attach weight to these magnitudes, it's like it seems reasonably apart. Okay, so this is our sort of first stage. And so let me now go through the browsing and the subscription results based on these two variables, with the caveat that the difficulty of the quiz was not randomly assigned. What we find is that people who found the quiz hard were the ones who increased their engagement to SC in terms of daily visits, and people who had low politics affinity, right? This is slightly noisy, but it's sort of in the general direction.
The regressions is just funny, right?
Sorry?
Like two regressions is just funny because you're conditioning a post-treatment variables.
Yes. Yeah. But again, so that's why I just see this as like a descriptive sort of check, that it's not like, it's like, it's at least lining up with what we see here.
Which is also funny.
Yeah. Yes. But again, it's like, it's the same sort of subsample, that's moving everything in the direction that we theorize. But with the concern, with the caveats. And actually in the revised sort of paper, in the revised version, we are downplaying the difficulty results exactly because of that. I like it because it was a sanity check for me, right? Just that, I know that it's endogenous. I know, that these groups might be different, even though on observables, they aren't that different. But, but that was just a personal sort of thing. Again, these are, to the extent that that we can do this, subsample analysis for subscriptions. This is obviously, we're getting into noisy territory. We find similar effects for hard and people who didn't have political sort of affinity. This is just for, I think this is related to Arushi's question before, which is that people who had low politics affinity were the ones who were increasing their hard news consumption related to politics and the economy, and not sports. So I'm sort of coming to the end. Longer run effects. I think I mentioned that earlier. We basically go back to the sort of null effects, noisy nulls. And the final bit is something that I already sort of mentioned, that this is from that Reuters Institute report. Interestingly, run around the same time that we actually ran the experiment. What would you turn to in order to verify an online story that you might suspect is false? It's always like a news source that I trust, and it cuts across political lines. So again, what might it imply for dynamic sort of general equilibrium effects? We can only speculate. Okay, so that's basically all I have, just to sort of get everything together. There's the starting point for us was this conversation around how AI, how generative AI might, might sort of destroy trust in the media as well as demand, especially for mainstream media, just because there's a lot of synthetic content out there. And what we try to at least, provide a partial counterpoint, which is that as people, are unable to tell apart real from synthetic, they might turn to existing expert sort of institutions, and it might actually even be a financial opportunity for some of them. And the way we tie it into the broader AI literature is about the role of experts, the role of human experts in the age of AI. That's all I have. Thank you for engaging throughout.